The way my brain works, I'm sort of balanced, right brain and left brain. I'm a big picture strategy guy, but I'm also very, very practical. And I was just at a board meeting right now where I was basically whacking my CEO around because it was like, what are the detailed implementation steps? Oh, great vision. What are the detailed implementation steps we need to take to get from here to there? And I presented a lot of detailed implementation steps to Gary and Helene, and I was like, listen, there's no way it can be a $100 million business in the first year. And their reaction was, listen, GE is a huge company. At the time, they were $75 billion in revenue, and now it's, I don't know, whatever it is, $140 billion. We really can't afford to be thinking about anything that's less than $100 million. If this could be a $100 million business in the first year, great. If it can't be, I'm not sure what to do with it. And maybe it should be some startup or something. And that's what Gary said. Now, Gary said that to me. He didn't know who he was talking to, though. He didn't realize that I had the guts to actually leave my cushy salary and my big job and go do something. So I thought about it for this is the few days before Christmas in '94. I thought about it for about 6 weeks, about 4 weeks. By the end of January, I had decided, and my wife was on board, that I was going to leave GE and start this company. I actually had my guaranteed bonus was paid like February 21st. So I resigned. That was like a Friday. So I resigned and it was the President's Day weekend. So I resigned on Tuesday, February 24th, after I'd cashed the check. Totally ethical, but you got to do what you got to do. I had earned it. It was totally ethical, but hey, there are times. It's funny. I had burned about 2 bridges in my entire life, but sometimes a bridge needs to be burned. Sometimes you need to take the courageous move and go forward, even though you burn a bridge. There are moments in your life where you don't want to burn bridges. You want to build as many bridges as you can, maintain relationships throughout your career. You want to still be talking to your high school guidance counselor, the guy I mentioned. You want to have those. You want to have that network you build over your career and over your life, both for personal and professional reasons. That being said, there are key moments in your life where you will have decisions to make, and you will know that if I go down this path, I can never go back. And you know what? Sometimes you got to take those. So leaving GE was that kind of moment for me. They were not happy I left. It was not a pleasant experience leaving. I won't tell you the whole story. We're running out of time. But I left. And then I persuaded a guy named Sam. Sam Kinney was a guy I met here in Pittsburgh, actually. He was a McKinsey consultant in the Pittsburgh office who I'd met at a training program a couple years before in London. And this guy and I just clicked. His skill set and my skill set fit very well together. Here's another lesson learned. There is nobody who's got the full skill set. Who's got all the leadership and motivational capability, all the sales capability, all the financial quantitative analysis capability, all the software engineering capability, all the plant operations capability. There is nobody who has the complete set of skills to run a business or to grow a significant idea. So what's key is it's key to bring together a group of people who've got complementary skills. And I like to think about it. Who's familiar with the Hindu Kush? I've never been there, but if you but I can imagine. I've seen these photos, and different documentaries. I can imagine myself standing in Kabul, Afghanistan, looking up at the Hindu Kush. And the reason I love the Hindu Kush is it is one of the most solid mountain ranges in the world. Right? It doesn't go like this. It's not like the Alps even. Kind of is up and down. The Hindu Kush is like. The lowest point is the Khyber Pass between Pakistan and Afghanistan. And the Khyber Pass, I think, is at 12,500 feet. There is no way over that pass. That's why today it's so easy to hide in the Hindu Kush on one side of the border or the other, right? This is an important place on the globe. But that's what you want. When you create your management team, you want to create the Hindu Kush. You want to have boom, there's no weaknesses, but no one person's like that. So here's my mountain range. You want to take somebody else's mountain range and paste it in there, and you want to create no passes. You want to have no weakness in the team. And so Sam and I fit together very well. I got Sam to join me in early 1995. We wrote a great business plan. The business plan we wrote said we'd be $100 million in revenue within 5 years. It had it described the idea of this software that companies would use. That we actually were one of the original creators of the idea of SaaS, of software as a service over the internet. We didn't call it that, but that's what it was. We were basically providing the software so people could use it. Our original versions were client server, so they had to install stuff on their machine because we didn't have browsers yet. Within a few years, we were totally browser-based, and all people had to do is hit our site and with their password and log in, and boom, just like Salesforce.com or any other SaaS offering today. But we were providing the software over the internet. We were providing a bunch of services wrapped around it, like supplier research, like the kind of basically very targeted sort of consulting I'd done at McKinsey with helping people find suppliers, helping people identify the spend, helping people write better requests for quote. Over time, we automated more and more of that with our software. And we basically conceived of all that in the original business plan. And we put every penny we had, that $20,000 I'd gotten in the bonus, went into the business. We sold our house in Connecticut, moved to Pittsburgh. We moved to Pittsburgh because Sam was here. Sam didn't really want to move. And I kept coming to Pittsburgh and I kept liking it. I liked the medium, being a native of New York, I liked the medium-sized city. I liked the fact that I could get around. I liked the airport. Back then it was a hub, it was expensive, but I could fly everywhere direct. I liked the Carnegie Mellon tie because, and I'm very involved with Carnegie Mellon today. I'm a trustee of the university. I've been a trustee for about 4 years now. I'm very involved with the university because this is a key asset for the city. But for me at the time, Carnegie Mellon was one of the key early internet centers. There were people here who understood the internet and understood how to develop websites and understood how to develop software that would work in our kind of environment. So the combination of CMU and the technical talent here, the airport, the kind of low, the taxes high, but the overall cost of rent and people lower, and the image. I was going to be going out to these kind of not forward-thinking industrial purchasing sites, and I was going to be selling the idea of the internet and selling the idea of this new way of sourcing. And I thought the Pittsburgh brand around industry was a really good brand for us. I thought it was a good thing to have on our business card. So my wife and I moved here. We sold the house. Every penny of equity went into the business. Sam put a lot of money into the business. My dad invested. My uncle invested. His dad invested. This is how you come up with the first round of angel money. And when you do that, when you can go to investors and look at me and say, listen, every penny I have is in this business, and my dad's money is in it, my uncle and my partner, they're like, okay, I can throw $50K into this. They're willing to take a risk with you too if you're compelling and the idea is compelling. And so we raised about $1 million that first year, just angel type money. I made a lot of mistakes in the early financing. I gave away way too much. Should have had a much higher valuation. I could go on and on about some of those lessons. I also made one of the classic mistakes that Bill Gates made the same mistake I made, which is that I had, in addition to Sam, I had a third, in quotes, co-founder. Wonderful guy, still a friend, haven't burned the bridge. Very, very fine guy. And he had been kind of an internal client of mine at GE, but I never should have brought him in as a founder. And worse than that, I never should have had his equity be vested. I had heard that VCs often would make founders vest their shares. Sam and I had both heard that and read that, and we resented that idea. We're like, we started the company, we put all our money in, we're taking all this risk. We'll be darned to have some VC or some investor tell us that we have to vest our equity. But guess what? And I tell now as a VC myself, I tell founders of companies this every week. I tell people this: please, please trust me. We're going to invest. We'll let you have, we'll fund your company. We'll let you have 30%. We'll say you're the lead founder. Okay, fine, 30%, and your other co-founder, 30% or even 50% sometimes. I'll go that far. Will be fully yours. But doggone it, let's vest the rest, and let's do you and the whole team, because you don't know who's not going to work out. You might all be three merry fellow friends from Tepper and think you're going to start a business together. But guess what? I guarantee one of you isn't really going to work out. And then what do? It's just not fair that this person didn't work out for whatever reason gets to own a big chunk of the company when they're not there creating the value. And if they're not there, and that's a handicap in the way the company really getting somewhere, because there's a person with a lot of big chunk of equity who's not there working hard every day, and the company fails. Well, that's a bad thing. Or worse yet, if the company does really well and they get a free ride, that's terrible. The fact of the matter, no insult to Paul Allen, but the fact of the matter is Paul Allen does not deserve to be a 10 or 20 billionaire. He doesn't. He left Microsoft in like 1977 or 76. I've never met Paul Allen. I'm sure he's a lovely guy, but it's just true. He got a free ride. So even Bill Gates made this mistake. But I had an early partner who just had a huge chunk, not more than me, fortunately, but a huge chunk that he never should have got. And then as part of his separation deal, we agreed to try to buy him out. So for years, I was like, every time I had a little bit of spare money on my credit card, I'd buy more shares from him. And it was just it was a painful thing. So that's like one big lesson learned is always the founding team of a company And hey, 3-year vesting doesn't need to be 5 years, 2 or 3 year vesting, because we know within 12 months we know who's going to be effective and who isn't going to be effective. But that's another story. But we got the business off the ground that first year. 1995 was fun. We made some mistakes in the equity, which we didn't appreciate yet at the time. But we raised some money. We built a team. We got some space in downtown Pittsburgh. We built our initial versions of software. We had very aggressive deadlines on ourselves, and we hit them. By November 1st, I founded the business in late February, early March of 95. By November 1st, we had pilot software working, and we were serving a pilot customer. So it was great. We did $16,000 of revenue in 95. 96 got very, very tough because every time we do a project and let's say we use our software and with the services around it, they'd save a lot of money. And we thought that this thing would sell like hotcakes, but it took enormous oomph to get people to change their way of thinking. And the more money, and sometimes we go into a corporation, the more money we save them, the more of a threat we were. And the more the purchasing people didn't want anything to do with us, because if we're saving 30, like remember my water treatment chemical examples, $12 million spend, save $4 million. Guess what? There's some people who are happy about that. There's a lot of people who are very unhappy about that because they look bad. And so that was the dynamic we were facing with free markets, is we were saving corporations on average like 20%. So every $10 million of spend we work on, we save $2 million a year in run rate savings. So our benefit to the corporations and our ROI was incredibly high, but the buyers were very, very uncomfortable with us. So we had to find a way to position ourselves, back to the P's, to be kind of friends to buyers, to make the buyers a hero. The other thing is we had another P problem. We had a pricing problem, because although our first business plan was a great vision of what the service was, so the product part, the 5 P's, the product part, we described the product, the software, and the service that went with it very, very well. And we were really spot on in terms of the market need. We didn't have this problem of how to overcome the buyer resistance and positioning figured out. We also priced it wrong. We thought we would get almost no money at all from the buyer, but we'd get commission revenues. So like if a supplier won business through us, that they won a $2 million contract, we thought we could get them to pay us like 2%. And that would be a lot of money, and they'd pay us that over the years as they were supplying the parts. That theoretically was a great idea. And this is if you ever read the free markets case, we only did the first case. We never did a follow through on it because we gave away way too much competitive intelligence in that is why we never did a follow-up case. But there were companies created based on our case who became competitors. But now it's all history, so it doesn't matter. But that's really it's not clear in that case. It's a little bit nebulous. But really, the business issue at the end is that one of the 5 P's is wrong. This whole supplier, and if you look at the table at the last page, and you really dig into that chart, you kind of see that our actual yield rate on these commissions was very, very low. And also, not only was the yield rate low because suppliers would refuse to pay us or would delay paying us, but this was a great excuse for the buyers to resist us, because the low-level buyer who actually had the metal component contract with the supplier and who knows the supplier really well, the suppliers would call them up and say, these free markets guys are awful, they're making me pay them this revenue, how can you do this, blah, 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 blah. And it was really easy for that change-resistant buyer to say no. And so we had to fix that. And actually, in the wake of that case, in early 1996, getting this positioning right, the internet was so new, the fact that we had the pricing wrong, it was really tough. We just really, really struggled in 1996 to get people to buy our service. We actually got to about, we actually did 400,000 of revenue on 16,000 the year before on top of that. So we were, I'm very commercial, and we were very driven and determined. So we made some sales and we made some progress. But our expenses that year were like $2.5 million to pay for the team and the software development and everything else. And it was a very, very tough time. 1997, the first half of 97 was very, very tough because, again, we hadn't really gotten any major ongoing deals. A lot of pilots, a lot of little things. We'd started to raise our pilot pricing, but we hadn't solved either the positioning problem or the price or the bigger pricing problem. And then we lost a deal with Procter & Gamble, and that was right around the time of the case. The case is set in like January 97. We lost a deal with Procter & Gamble. Procter & Gamble told us point blank, after one pilot, they said, we don't like this pricing model, we're not going to do it. And we said, well, that's our pricing model, sorry. And I learned something very fundamental about business. I thought, kind of from an MBA point of view, that, you should stick with your guns, You should educate the market. If you change your pricing with one customer, you trash the market.